Hello, dear sisters and brothers, and welcome to the Faith Perspective. I'm Andriacha with Beatrice de Cruz. Now, the Faith Perspective is an opportunity for us to talk about trending issues or events that are happening in the church and in the world.
In the past few weeks, we've had 2 episodes about the Archdiocesan Assembly, and we spoke with Alfred Pang and Sister Bubbles, the 2 lead facilitators at the Archdiocesan Assembly, as well as 2 delegates from parishes. They are named Alexis Xiao from Our Lady of Perpetual Succor OLPS and Bernard Chung from Holy Family Church. Now, just to refresh your memory, nearly 700 delegates from 32 churches in Singapore, church organizations, ministries, and religious communities gathered on March the 1st, 2025, to pray and discern the Archdiocese's pastoral direction and its priorities.
Right, and so in part 3 of this conversation on the Archdiocesan Assembly, we're happy to welcome back both of the Archdiocesan Pastoral Council co-chairs, Father Adrian Danker and Kwek Mean Luck, yes, whom you all very well know already by now, to share with us what transpired at the Archdiocesan Assembly and how the feedback and various conversations have actually helped draft the Archdiocesan Pastoral Plan. Father Adrian serves as co-chair representing the clergy and the religious, while Mean Luck holds the position of co-chair representing the lay faithful. So welcome back to both of you. Thank you so much for joining us. Father, I'm going to start with you. When you and the Archdiocesan Pastoral Council and your members got together to prepare for the assembly, what direction were your hopes for the whole assembly?
There were many things we talked about and there were many hopes.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that we really hoped for was that it would be a gathering of all of us and really it would unite us as a diocese because you would have people coming from not just different parishes and organizations, but people with different understandings of how we can be church, what kind of diocese we want to be, what are the areas of focus we should be attending to pastorally. And we had hoped that that coming together allows us a platform to converse, dialogue, and find some common ground. Actually, the process began with the initial conversations that we've had.
Right.
So this was an opportunity, having heard from a range of views, right, to come together and say, these are where the church is, and based on what we hear, can you, the delegates, tell us if these are the areas of concerns pastorally? Can we agree on how we want to move forward? And can we together commit ourselves together, not as one group or other or some office of the church and some parish,
Right.
but together,
Yeah.
can we be a diocese that would commit and therefore follow Jesus and take the plan ahead?
Wow. So I was there, and and I mean, I just felt that everyone who was seated there in that room was on a mission, and it felt like, I mean, yes, we all went there with our different thoughts and ideas, but I think the mission was really how were we to move as church together, for the Archdiocese. So, Mean Luck, how did you feel, from the responses that we managed to get from the participants?
When we look back at it, I think what really strikes us, part of it was the responses, the delegates, but I think above all, it's really how throughout that day the Spirit was moving amongst us.
Yeah.
And just to get a sense of how transformative that whole process was, I think, going back to what Father Danker said, I mean, this process began 2 years ago. We've had 40 over conversations with 1,000 over people, parishes, church organizations, schools, religious orders. And there was such a diverse range of views about what should be the priorities of the church, what we should do. And over the course of those 2 years, it began to coalesce to certain themes. And those were what set out to be the priorities that was in the schema.
Right.
And while initially we thought that the assembly would be about whether these are the directions, over time, especially the later conversations, we began to hear from those who took part that actually we support the directions, we support the priorities. The key question is it going to get implemented? Yeah. How are we going to do it?
Right.
And so with that in mind, we began to change some of how we plan the assembly. We created more space for people to talk about their commitments. But at the same time, we recognized that it was important for us to still have that platform where everybody can come together and, if possible, led by the Spirit, to say as one voice, this is the direction of the church. And this was the lead up to the assembly. And what happened on that day fulfilled all of those hopes, expectations, and more. Because, as you say, throughout, and we went around the different tables, the different table sharings, and then later on the group sharings, it was this convergence of people from different parts of the church about the direction that we should go. That we should no longer be looking just within ourselves as a church, but to look outside to those around us. That there's a need for us to do more to fulfill the mission of Christ. And that really imbued the day. It was something that was powerful, it was something that was strong. And you could see it in not just the convergence of the directions that people had, but towards the end of the day, I think you recall people started sharing, look, this is what we are doing. And we're happy to work with other people to do something in that direction. And that, I think, was really very powerful and very encouraging.
Yeah. No, and we mentioned, or we met also, Alexis, you mentioned her. She was one of the youth who spoke up, and it was so nice to see someone so young and so filled with the Spirit and wanting to, really go out and to readily work with others for the common mission of the church. And, and when you talk about, you gave the space for the Spirit to move, I really felt that was really the Spirit moving in itself.
Yes.
For people to respond in that way, I think it was just amazing. How did you feel, Father?
I'm just very grateful, really, because I think, as Mean Luck says, one of the things we were hoping for was not just the platform, but for us to listen to the Spirit. Right? And what I really sensed was seeing how the delegates, when they came, there was an eagerness to come. There was eagerness to listen, really. Someone said to me, they expected more chatter, noisier, right? But it was kind of quiet.
Yeah.
And I thought about it, and I was thinking, people were really listening to the Spirit moving in one another, and not just listening, but intently trying to find where the Spirit was leading us. And to me, that's too a great generosity of people willing to hear, to allow that space to be open, and not to stop or change the conversation. And I really felt, just watching them, like Mean Luck said, walking around, to see the Spirit moving, but to see the generosity, the big-heartedness of everyone willing to converse, and really to find that way that the Spirit was leading us forward. Great kindness, great generosity, but I think great humility too among the delegates to be open, recognizing that so many came from different parts of the church, right? And all seeking to say, how do we move forward? What is our commitment together?
Father, I think you've, and Mean Luck as well, both of you have shared on the affirmation of the direction that APC is moving in with the pastoral plan. And I was wondering, with, the two areas that have been brought up in terms of the priority, building strong families and also lifelong formation, these two are the priorities. What are your thoughts on this, Father, and especially when this came up to be the two key areas?
I think my thoughts first is that the Spirit spoke, right? I mean, this was based on the responses of the people. And clearly, in the lead up to the assembly, there was a lot of conversation about families, the importance of families, the fact that we live in a very secularized society. The needs of the families are great, right? And the need to how, as a church, we must respond was also another theme that came up. I'm glad that the focus on families came up, because it is something that is close to the hearts of many. And it was across all the different groups. It was a general sense that we need to continue to keep the family at the heart of not just church, but society. We need to also prepare our young to take on roles in the family. And there's also an understanding that if the family is at the heart of it all, how do we build it up? How do we nurture it? And more than that, what as a church can we do to support? I think it was the right emphasis. And it's good to start with the family rather than with anything bigger in the church, because the family is the domestic church.
Correct.
And I think in a way it gives us an opportunity to say, yes, we have a plan, but let's begin where it really matters with the family.
Right.
That's the first thing I'll say about that. The one on lifelong learning, I'm very grateful that that's where the Spirit led us to too, and that's where the people also recognize that if we really want to build church, right, we've got to begin with ourselves. And part of that is how do we form ourselves as disciples, and not just disciples who are faithful to the call of the Great Commission,
Right.
but how do we then learn to be disciples who can also help other people become disciples? Right? And I think that focus is very honest because as a church, I think it invites us to think about some of the programs we have
Right.
and how do we need to perhaps do it better, more responsive to the time. So something we've talked about for a long time has been RCIA, right? The formation of somebody who wants to come to the faith.
Yes.
Do we just do a one-size-fits-all? Do we do it over a program? Or do we do it as a journey, which is an encounter?
Right.
And can we also be a little bit more flexible because there are different groups of people wanting to be part of church? So, for example, if you have a one-size-fits-all, we may not be able to deal with or help the migrant workers who want to be part of church.
Right.
Or for that matter, people who are working and coming in and out. I think that idea of going forward is important. And for us who are priests and religious, I think especially for us as clergy, the invitation to say that formation doesn't stop with ordination, that if we really want to be a church that's responsive and moving on,
Right.
we too need to be formed. We need to actually own that process.
Yeah.
But we also need the laity and others who have the skills to help us to learn, to be formed. I think that invitation to the clergy is timely, and I think it's good for us to hear that.
Yeah.
Because if we are formed better as clergy, we can better help the laity to move forward as well.
Correct.
So grateful that those two will be the focus. And that's where the people of God also see us needing to begin, right? And to say that's where we focus. Not that we will not focus on the other three. They can go on, and they can go on with groups that are ready. But for the first few years, let's focus on this and let's go deep so we can actually say we begin well and build on. We've talked about this, right, Mean Luck?
Yeah.
What your thoughts are?
Yeah.
So.
Sorry, I'm just going to ask, so some of the thoughts that came up about, although we talked about formation, some of the lay people there were talking about, so is this going to be like a whole lot of academic study and things like that? Did you hear any feedback on that, Mean Luck?
I think that when we look at formation, it's very practical and it's really to meet certain needs. So, for example, Father Danker mentioned RCIA. The question which arose in the APC conversations is that actually today we're quite academic. We are very good at providing content.
Yeah.
You may have a very good deck or many decks of good slides.
Absolutely.
Then the question is, how close is that person at the end of his journey with Christ? Not to say that the content is not important.
Sure.
How do we find that balance?
Yeah.
So, and actually, I mean, reflecting on the conversations, maybe that's the Spirit working. There's a certain consistency also in the identification of these two as the more immediate priorities. Because in the conversations, there was also importance placed on these things. And I think what Archbishop said about these two as the immediate priorities is also important. He said that for the next 2 years, the Curia, in looking to lead and implementing the plan as a whole over the course of 10 years, will focus on these two first.
Right.
Because it's a practical matter. You can't do everything well up front, and you can do things better if you focus. But in the course of focusing on it, inevitably, you need to achieve the outcomes of the other three. If you want to have stronger families, if you want lifelong formation, you need unity in the church.
Yeah.
You need greater co-responsibility from the laity taking part, whether it's in teaching or other things.
Correct.
And as a way of discussing how do we go about doing this, synodality becomes important. So in the course of focusing on these two priorities for the Curia over the next 2-3 years, I think the other outcomes from the other priorities will also still be looked at. And I think what Archbishop said about what we should do in the meanwhile is so important. And one of the points he made is that, but that doesn't mean that we all sit back and shake leg, Because whoever can go and run with those priorities, go ahead and do it. Whether you're at the parish level, whether you are at the church organization, religious orders. And it's also the nature of the issues that we face. And we may have spoken about it before, but let's say you take catechism. At one level, you look at it with one lens, you say, well, catechism means that we need to update our syllabus, we need to provide more training for the catechist.
Yeah.
But one of the feedback we've been hearing is that you can't just place it solely in the hand of the catechist. Where's the family in this?
Absolutely.
The parents needs to come in.
Yeah.
Then the catechist share with us that, I can WhatsApp, I can send the content to the parents. How do I know they will do something with it?
Correct.
That depends on their formation. So a lot of these things are fairly holistic, and we need to bring them all together.
Yeah, correct. So I think some people will be glad to know that there needs to be a balance. Formation needs to be a balance. While there are certain things, there's certain studies that are in place, but there are also other ways of through experiential learning as well, through leadership and growth, and all of these other areas. So I think people need not be afraid that you have to sit for an exam every term or anything of that sort. But really, we are looking at a holistic formation for everyone to be involved from the time they come in from primary one. Even now, you have preschool catechism already going on, right? Right up to the day we breathe our last, we are still being formed, actually. And I mean, that should be the direction for everyone, actually, for every Christian life.
And it also goes into very practical things, as Mean Luck says, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that has come up from the assembly was the invitation made by many that as a church, we should think of how to accompany our fellow sisters and brothers.
Okay.
It's a wonderful aspiration. It's a much needed desire.
Correct.
But in order to help people accompany, we need to actually form these people who are going to walk with each other.
Absolutely.
So in that sense, the formation cannot be totally academic. It's got to be really on the ground, pastoral, practical, because some of the hopes and aspirations are really about the day-to-day ways we want to be church. But more than that, we want to accompany each other.
And people are at different seasons of their lives.
Yes.
Right? And their needs are going to be different.
Of course.
Yeah. Okay, that's so you can breathe a sigh of relief. No, with all of the feedback that we received, all the conversations that have come across, how has that helped you or helped your team draft or mold the pastoral plan that's coming together?
I think much of the feedback that we receive at the assembly, it reinforced what was already in the schema. But at the same time, I mean that wider sense of acceptance at the assembly that we should as a church be looking outward, I think gave us that impetus and confidence to reflect more of that in that pastoral plan, this outward-looking dimension. And there were also areas that were deepened or fleshed out. So Father Danker mentioned accompaniment. In the lead up to the assembly, accompaniment was a suggestion that this is a useful capability or skill for use in certain ministries. And as this was shared, people said, actually, I can use this in other types of ministries, other type of groups as well. So the whole thing widened. And so eventually in the pastoral plan, it became much broader, much wider. And we are starting to look at, how do we have platforms to allow people from different church organizations, parishes, and religious orders, because they have different ways of doing accompaniment. How do we get everybody to come together and share how they do it so that the rest of the church can learn and we can all become stronger and better in these ministries and apply it to all the different areas of needs that we have in our own areas?
Yeah. And you know what? I mean, and Pope Leo the 14th, now, I've been reading a lot of the work that he's done in his missionary work, and he talks a lot about accompanying people and being near each other. And so we are really actually, I feel, traversing that journey together.
as I've often said, right, it's if we step back a little bit and we look at the work of the Holy Spirit, the gift of the assembly, the gift of the invitation to come up with a pastoral plan, the pontificate of Pope Francis and now with Pope Leo, the resonances cannot not tell us that the Lord is at work.
Absolutely.
You know, and as I said at the assembly, really the gift has been given. The invitation for us as a diocese now is how do we unpack the gift? And that task is not just to a parish, an organization, or a group. It's to all of us as a diocese. And I think if we can understand that, then perhaps, we can look at these times, and I mentioned these times because it's very providential, the way the Lord has been working for us as a diocese.
Okay, that's really wonderful.
Yeah. Okay, so I think, just to also wrap up the conversation a little bit, and a lot of us are looking forward to what are the next steps. Yes, exactly. And so we understand, Father, that the Archdiocesan Pastoral Plan will be released soon. It's, in the draft, in the making. How will it be rolled out to the entire Catholic family in the Archdiocese?
There's a lot to be done, right? There's a lot to be done. I'll just talk in generalities and ask Mean Luck to help me also unpack it. But I think one of the things that we do know is that there is a momentum on the ground by many who are looking forward to something that is hope-filled and something that allows us to move forward. We know that the next few stages will be conversations at different groups with Bishop, with the Curia, to identify who can move things forward and how best we can do it in a coordinated fashion, right? But at the same time, it's just not a series of announcements, right? It's really picking up from there. And so just two thoughts. One is that Bishop did say at the last assembly that we should gather back every 2 years as an assembly, right? We've had one 2 years prior to this. We've had one this year. Bishop says every 2 years now we should have one. And I suppose in that declaration by Bishop, it invites us as a diocese to really keep our eye on the plan, right? And that when we gather, we will look at how far we've come, be accountable for it, and look forward. At the same time, we at the APC have been talking about the fact that the momentum to gather together for a diocese that wants to learn from each other invites us to really think that in the alternate years, it might be good for us to gather in a smaller group, perhaps along thematic conferences,
Right.
but just to allow us to share best practices, to hear from each other, and to allow this plan to unfold organically, right? Those are some thoughts that I have in mind, and I know Mean Luck has some ideas too about how we should move forward.
I think there is a lot in the plan. And I've shared with people that there's a lot in the plan because it reflects the many different areas of our church. And our church is involved in so many different things, important areas. The pastoral plan sets out the direction of where we might go as a church. Whether we get there depends on what we do and whether we do it together. And I think that is very important because the church is doing a lot today, but there's also so much more that we can and we should do. And we can only do that if we come together as a church and we continue in the same spirit that we saw at the assembly, that we are one as one church unified, coming across different parishes, church organizations, different religious orders. And if we do that, then there is a lot that we can do. So while there is much that perhaps different parishes or the Curia might be thinking, I think perhaps the point for reflection for each of us as individuals goes back to something that Pope Francis said at the end of his homily. And towards the end, he cited the words of St. Francis Xavier. And he said that we could make the words of St. Francis Xavier. And I quote, the words are, "Lord, here I am. What do you want me to do?" And so the question, I think, for each of us as we look at the plan is not so much that, well, this is a plan, who's going to execute it, what will they do? But as we look at the plan, hopefully each of us as individuals and as communities will look at it, say, in the same vein as what Pope Francis said, as what St. Francis Xavier said, Lord, here I am. What do you want me to do?
Right. And so with that, actually, dear sisters and brothers, You know, all of us, again, I think it's very clear. The clarion call is there. We all have a role to play.
Yes.
Each and every one of us has a role to play. And you know, again, I just go back to that day where 700 of us or more were in this hall, right? And really, the gifts, the talents that were assembled there was really amazing. Imagine with the Holy Spirit leading us and guiding us and everyone working in unity, that force will be a force to be reckoned with. But a force, it should be a force of love and a force that is ready to really tell the world about Jesus.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And with that, we're going to say thank you so much to Father
you.
Adrian Danker and
you,
also
Father.
to
Thank you,
Kwek
Adrian.
Mean Luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As always, thank you. And I think, you know, we will continue, of course, to pray for the APC. You all have done tremendous work, and really, we can only thank you for the years, not months, years of work that you have put in. Not many people realize the amount of work that has gone in, but really, thank you so much for the dedication that you have put in and for your whole team. And so, dear sisters and brothers, what we can do right now, immediately, is really to pray for the Lord to lead us, and to pray that each and every one of us is moved to be led by the Spirit.
Amen.
So, thank you.
Yeah. As always, a few reminders. If you're listening to us on our live stream, this episode, as well as other Faith Perspective episodes, will be out at 7 p.m. on alternate Tuesdays. And if you'd like to catch up on this interview, and don't forget we've had parts 1 and 2, you can always head to our Archdiocese YouTube channel to watch that at your own time.
And with that, we say thank you, God bless, and love you all. Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care.